Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation. I need to start keeping a ticker to keep track. I don't know how long it's going to last for, but to keep track of what the playoff odds are. Because I check every day. I check after every game, after or before every show. I check the playoff odds over at moneypuck.com. And what I found today is 6.7%. The reason that I say I want to write it down, Harm, is because I can't remember if that's higher or lower than it was yesterday.
I think it's slightly lower.
Right.
I think you only run the ticker if the odds ever climb above 10%.
No, I'm going to bring it up
Until
every
then,
day.
it's a moot point.
No, it's not a moot point. It's
It is.
every day. Every day we're going to bring it up because they're still kicking. They're still kicking. Although it's hard. Tonight's a must-win game for the Vancouver Canucks.
Sure. Yeah, we've been saying that for how many weeks now?
Well, they didn't win those must-win games. So now this is really a must-win game.
Yeah, they're really going to get it done, right? They're going to win 7 or 8 of their next 8.
Okay, run the table. Run the table. The math is there for them. Kinda, but not really. My name is Jacob Quattrelli. I am joined by Harmon Dial of The Athletic, and we are here for Canucks Conversation. Our technical producer is Jacob Lazar. Jacob, I actually want to ask you right off the top, how are we on Family Feud surveys? Because I didn't even realize today's Wednesday.
Yeah, we need some more. We need a few more responses. So if you haven't yet, in the description on YouTube, on the audio pod, on Facebook, if you're watching on Twitter or Instagram, just head over to our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. You'll be able to find it through there.
Ron Grant asking a really good question. If the trolls on Canucks Army are so smart, why aren't they in an NHL head office? Harmon, as somebody who doesn't technically work for Canucks Army, do you want to answer that question?
Well, first of all, it is funny that a lot of the Canucks Army alumni have ended up working in NHL front offices. I think that bears mentioning first and foremost. And second, I mean, it's not like we're out here claiming that we could run NHL organizations better.
I am.
Okay, sure. Outside of you, we're not claiming we can run NHL organizations better than these primary decision makers. But that doesn't mean you're not qualified to discuss the team. Our jobs are to discuss the team, how they're run, player performances. And a lot of us have experience being in NHL locker rooms, forging relationships with players, GMs, coaches around, not just within this organization, but around the league. And that gives you, in my opinion, at least some level of credibility being around the game at such a close level for several years now.
Ron clarified. He's talking about the commenters on Canucks Army. But I appreciate pointing out that all the Canucks Army alumni work in, or a lot of the Canucks Army alumni work in NHL front offices. I got to see if they have a vibes department coming up, because that's where I thrive. Vibes department. Chief of Vibes. I think that's a good department for me. Chat's bumping early, so I want to tell you about our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. It is a Canucks game day. This is Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365, and I want to see a Super Chat today. I'm just going to say it right off the hop. I'd like to see a Super Chat. I feel like it's been a while since we've been able to donate some money to the BC Mental Health Foundation, so I'd like to see a Super Chat. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with a Super Chat. Harmon, Canucks Kraken tonight, 7:30 start tonight. I don't like those. I don't like those late starts. And I already told you I'm looking forward to Saturday when they're going to serve brunch in the press box. I live for that game. Like, that's that Anaheim game. And it was against Anaheim the other year when I went to get my waffles.
Yeah, the only 2 times you show up to the rink.
I'm not going to lie. I do show up to the rink largely based on what's being served in the press box. Like, I won't lie. Luongo's Ring of Honor night. Yeah, that's a great night for everybody. But they served Italian food in the press box that night. There was pasta. They had lasagna. So I was there. I'm not going to lie. I do. Even though you have to pay for the press box meal, like it's like $16, I still show up and show up for the press box food.
Yeah, showing up for what really counts and matters.
That's right. And then they play a game too. And you just show up. And that's the funny thing. When I'm there, I work. When I'm there, I'm taking notes. I'm working on instant reaction, which has to go out.
Yeah, that's the bare minimum. What are you're not showing up just to chill out?
No, not naming names, but there are a lot of people who just show up, sit in the press box, watch the game. They're eating popcorn or whatever, and then they're done. Like, not naming names.
Yeah.
Come on now. I'm one of the only ones writing all throughout the game. I leave very early. As soon as we're done media, I leave. Anyways, we're getting too into the weeds here. Okay. Yes, let's get to tonight's game. The Kraken are going to be without a few key contributors, so I wanted to mention that right off the top. They are without Eli Tolvanen and Jaden Schwartz, both of whom are top forwards on their team. They are going to be out. Both players are day to day. That courtesy of Scott Malone and Piper Shaw from Dan Bylsma, head coach of the Kraken. So some key contributors out for the Kraken tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not so much interested in breaking down this game specifically as I am looking at big picture over the next 8 games. What should Canucks fans be looking for? And to me, there are a lot of individuals, a surprising number on this team that have real stakes to play for, where there's actual meaning. There's some teams, like, for example, the Nashville Predators, where they've got veterans on big money contracts, and outside of the young guys, there just isn't a whole lot to play for, and you can see they're kind of going through the motions. But the state of the Canucks right now, there are a lot of guys that want to finish strong. Just, I mean, go up and down the lineup, right? Right off the bat, your top line, you got Pia Suter and Brock Besser, who are playing for new contracts. They want to produce as much as possible to help their cases. We know Suter's certainly been elevating his stock, and has he done enough to make the Canucks look at him as an indispensable piece to that? Hey, this is a guy that we should really pay up for on an extension. So you got 2 guys playing for contracts there. Further down the lineup, we know about the Abby guys, right? Aatu Raty. This is huge for him, especially him more so than a lot of the other Abby guys, because he's the most highly touted prospect on this team that requires waivers next season, right? Like Lekkermäki, yeah, he's more highly touted than Raty, but the pressure isn't going to be the same on Lekkermäki as it is on Raty to figure it out next season, because Lekkermäki is a lot younger and still has AHL eligibility if required. Whereas for Raty, the clock is running out. If you want to turn into full-time NHL player, this is it. This is when you produce down the stretch, continue the momentum from his last few games, show that you can make a consistent shift impact, and sort of prove that, hey, I'm decisively ahead of Nils Hoglander on the pecking order and depth chart. And like, you want Raty to be a guy that contends with Teddy Bluger for a roster spot next season, for lineup spot next season, I should say. So there's a lot for him out on the line. The Abby guys, yeah, Lekkermäki, Carlson, Amon, we know that, but also Dakota Joshua. Tocchet specifically pointed to Joshua yesterday when he was asked a general question about what's he looking for guys down the stretch, and Tocchet sort of referenced Joshua and said, he's looked better the past few games. Can you use that as a launching pad? And that's where, of course, Joshua and Raty have been successful together. And we know it's been a really difficult year for Dakota Joshua. The Canucks are going to need him to be an effective top 9 forward the way he was last year, where he could chip in with 15+ goals, be heavy along the boards, be a factor on the forecheck. So he's got a lot to play for. I mean, I could go on and on. Like Thatcher Demko, for him to stay healthy, finish strong, what could that mean? And the Canucks are going to have to make a decision on him too, given that they already have Lankinen signed. And do you want to have all that cap space committed to goaltenders next year? Demko's theoretically eligible for an extension on July 1st because he's only got 1 year left in his contract. So a lot of guys that have real stakes to play for.
That's one thing I've thought about recently is Demko in all of this. And that was the name I was going to say before you brought it up when we talk about players with something to prove. Like, it's Demko because, A, you want to prove that you can stay healthy for a stretch of time. I know it's only 8 games, but it feels like that would be a record for Thatcher Demko this season. And also, can you keep up that high level of play that we've seen from him, right? Like, it hasn't taken him long to kind of bounce back, but can he reach that level where he's just consistently Vezina caliber night in and night out? It's going to be really interesting for him down the stretch. Maybe a dark horse in a way, but like, would you also lump Elias Pettersson into this conversation? Because I think I would. And I'm talking Elias Pettersson the forward. Again, this is a guy who was really hot right before he went down. We know it's been a bad season for him. And I don't want to say really hot because I think he has another level. And I think you and I agree on that, Harmon, that he has another level to reach. But I do look at him as one of these guys where, okay, over these next 8 games, and we don't know how many of these he's going to play, if any, like, what does he look like coming back? Does he kind of pick up where he left off, or does it look like the Elias Pettersson that we've seen for most of this season? And obviously, you're hoping for the former.
Yeah, Pettersson's a little bit complicated because we haven't even seen him practice with the team yet. I know Talk had described it as day-to-day, but until we see him practicing, like, Talk was hopeful that Pettersson will return before the end of the season, but it wasn't a guarantee or for sure this is going to happen. And even if he does return, let's say there's only 2 or 3 games left on the schedule and he's coming off an injury. How much can you really read into those 2 or 3 games? But out of the injured guys, Hoglander definitely stands out because he was practicing in a non-contact jersey yesterday. Talkett was also mentioning how eager Hoglander is, that he's dying to get back into the lineup. And I think you could see that he's motivated to prove that, for him, the success that he had right before he got hurt is sustainable, is the real version of him. And that matters too, because Hoglander's also a player that when you look at the Canucks, they don't have a ton of cap flexibility this summer. Like they have some, but if you're talking about actually remodeling this team and wanting to add more elite talent, especially up front, there are cap considerations you're going to have to make. And Hoglander's one of those players that management's going to have to sit down and look at and go, is he worth $3 million for us next season? Do we believe that he can figure it out with Rick Tocchet? Otherwise, is that cap space better utilized elsewhere? Now, I'm a Hoglander believer. I haven't been exactly hiding that. I've been banging that drum for a while that I believe in his skill set and his talent, and that he should bounce back and be part of this top 9 group moving forward. But it isn't a guarantee, right? He's been an up and down player while he's been in Vancouver, and he A, seems closer to returning than Pettersson, and B, as much as we focused on the decision the franchise is going to have to make on Pettersson and the stakes are on his future, I feel like we haven't talked a lot about Hoglander's future. Like even ahead of the deadline, it was as if his value was so low that I think a lot of us were sort of saying, you just kind of got to ride it out. And
you have to. Yeah, you had to ride it out. I agree with you. You had to write it out. Like you had to, but are you saying there's going to be something to decide in the offseason? Because I think that's the way I always looked at it.
Yeah.
When he was struggling, but I don't know, like maybe I'm crazy. And I say this to another Hoglander believer. You believe in him a lot more than I do, but like, I think they keep him. I don't think they trade him in the offseason. I still don't know if he has positive value. And I think I want to choose my words carefully. But okay, let's just put it this way. I wouldn't trade Nils Hoglander this offseason if I were the Canucks, because you're going to have to attach a draft pick to it, probably.
I'll be honest, I don't know where his trade value lies. Could there be a team that looks at his strong second half performance, even though the point totals weren't terrific, but is there a way that you could find a taker for him without attaching a draft pick? Maybe, but having said that, would you rather that or just bet on the player potentially bouncing back, considering how good he was for you last season? Now
I would bet on the player.
Same. But if you're management, you also have to look at with this coach specifically, is Rick Tocchet ever going to be a Nils Hoglander guy?
Yeah. But okay, and I know we were talking about it yesterday. They're bringing him back on an option, and they basically told the rest of the league to buzz off. He's coming back to Vancouver next season. But let's be honest, Harm. Like, let's call it what it is. If Rick Tocchet comes back on an option next year, the chances of him staying as the Vancouver Canucks head coach beyond that season are probably low. Like, if he wants to be here, he would sign right now, or not right now, but in the offseason. Like, they'll have an indication of what the future holds for their coach in this offseason.
I'd be really surprised if they simply bring him back on an option as a lame duck.
I agree. So that's what I'm saying is like your decision and what happens with Rick Tocchet then leads into what happens with Nils Hoglander. Sure, if Tocchet signs a 3-year extension, sure, maybe I go to Rick Tocchet and say, hey, are we sure that this guy's going to work out? Which really, that should have been the conversation before they even signed the extension. But he's here. He's here for 3 more years on the current contract. So is this a guy that you think you can win with? And like, as for everything we say, like Rick Tocchet seems to like Nils Hoglander to some extent, right?
It's been up and down, right? He's had moments where
true.
he's liked Hoglander, but the leash has always been short for him. I mean, think about when he first at the start of the season, he was outstanding in training camp on that line with Aatu and Garland, and then started the regular season. I think it was like Pettersson, Hoglander, Garland, if I'm not mistaken. Hoglander and Garland were the same wingers on the line essentially, and they were buzzsaws. They were winning battles. They were driving play, and through the first 6 or 7 games of the season, Hoglander was pretty decent. But then there was that back check in the Carolina game. One bad back check then led to him being relegated to the bottom 6, and it just felt really harsh. And from there, that's, for a while, Hoglander struggled on the fourth line. He wasn't able to drive play, but a lot of it is also sort of confidence related. When as a player, that you've got such a short leash and you're getting, jerked back down the lineup when you thought you were taking a step forward. I didn't like how short the leash was for Hoglander early in the season. And thankfully for him, he's been able to, since January 1st, really first start to deliver promising results on the fourth line again. Winning his matchups, the Canucks decisively out-shooting, out-chancing, outscoring opponents with Hoglander on the ice at 5-on-5, seeing him return to being an effective player on the forecheck, zone entries, creating chances, and then for a while there, he was finally figuring it out on that line with Besser and Pettersson. We'll see. It's been an up and down relationship between Tocchet and Hoglander.
I did something yesterday. Or no, excuse me, it came out this morning. I wrote it late last night. Inside Baseball there. I wrote it last night, came out this morning. There's going to be 7 Canucks who are going to lose their NHL waiver exemption at the end of the season. I wanted to quickly go over this list because you kind of talked about it. Aatu Raty is on this list, and he's the subject of our poll question, which we'll get to in a second, but I wanted to rattle off these names. There's 3 names that are kind of, I don't know if 3. Let's say it's 4. Let's say 4 names that are kind of like on the fringes, the fringe NHLers, like they've played NHL games for this team, and they're going to require waivers to go down to the AHL next year. It's Aatu Raty, it's Arshdeep Bains, Linus Karlsson, and Arturs Sheloves. Now, Raty is obviously the one that's most likely to get claimed if he were to hit waivers, but I did also point out in the article, because I'm sure people would say, why are you even including Sheloves in that conversation based on the fact that the team can't even trust him to play in games right now? I did point out that some of the most successful waiver claims of all time have been goaltenders. Chris Osgood's obviously the big one that comes to mind. Why am I blanking? There's more than that. There was more. Like, I think Nabokov was on waivers as well at one point and got claimed and had a good year. Did Mike Smith hit waivers, Jacob?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
See, that wasn't even me doing the bit. Like, that's something you might actually know. I was like shot in the dark, but Jacob might actually remember that. No, it was Steve Mason. Right? Steve Mason, waivers. Yeah. No, Chris Mason. I can't believe there was 2 goalies with names the exact. Okay. Anyways, yes. It was Chris Mason was the one that hit waivers, and that was a successful waiver clip. So anyways, I was just pointing out.
Okay, come on. If Chris Mason is the best example of a successful goalie waiver
Osgood.
pickup.
It's Osgood. Okay, so basically Osgood gets claimed. Huh?
Like, but if Chris Mason's the second best example you could think of.
No, Nabokov is the second best example. Anyways, regardless, it was just I was making a little reference. Anyways, those are the 4 big ones, and then the rest of the pack, you got Akito Hirose, Ty Glover, and then Cole McWard, who is at the front of that category. But again, I don't think Cole McWard is getting claimed off of waivers next season. But
Remember
those guys
when we were all hyped for a little bit about Akito Hirose? Like down the stretch, and how many people were penciling him in on the second pair?
Yes.
After the OEL buyout.
Yes, I do remember all of that. He's turning 26 this year, right? I think Hirose is going to be 26.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Do you think he'll be at Young Stars? He turns 26 in 7 days. Happy birthday, Akito Hirose. Yeah, there's no youngsters obviously this year. It's the Seattle Vancouver Prospects tournament. Maybe he'll be there.
Quad's doing a bit of research for you here. It looks like Ilya Bryzgalov was once put on waivers.
There you go. See, goalies.
And I don't see anything about Mason or Smith. Chris Osgood was put on waivers. That was like old waivers. That's different. Nabokov was on waivers, but that was also different because he had gone to the KHL and then was coming back to the NHL.
Oh, the re-entry waivers. Yeah, do you remember?
So that wasn't his like prime San Jose days going on waivers.
When did re-entry waivers end?
Do you remember the Ryan O'Reilly debacle for the Calgary Flames? Your wagon Flames.
Sorry, repeat that. Ryan O'Reilly?
The Ryan O'Reilly debacle.
Oh, yes.
That was so funny.
But I thought that was more. Actually, I don't remember that. No, I don't remember that. I'm obviously confused if that's something.
The Flames had, if memory serves, the Flames offer sheeted O'Reilly while he was still with the Avs.
Okay.
Yeah, now, that was a lockout shortened season, so O'Reilly had played overseas, and so had the offer sheet gone through, the Flames would have given up those draft picks, and O'Reilly would have ended up on waivers before being allowed to join the Calgary Flames. And somebody would obviously pick up a young Ryan O'Reilly off waivers for free. And the Flames got lucky because the offer sheet got matched.
Oh, that is so funny. I didn't know that. I didn't know that part of the story. I honestly didn't. That's great. That's really funny. Good little pull there, Harm. And to answer my own question, re-entry waivers were abolished in 2013. That's why I remember them, because I was like, it's been so many years, but yeah, I had memories in 2013. So, okay.
And just one last big waiver pickup. Early in his career, friend of the show, Manny Malhotra, ended up with the Blue Jackets when he was claimed off waivers. So
there you go. Okay. Let's get to our poll question, which is a presentation of Pacific Toyota dealers who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X, an SUV packed with plenty of space. The BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. Plus, if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes, even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get $6,500 in rebates and incentives, and now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X from 3.29% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Okay. Harmon, we were talking about waivers. We were talking about Aatu Raty and how he would probably get claimed if he hits waivers. He's in that Vasily Podkolzin territory where the Canucks said, okay, we've loaded up on wingers. We don't think Vasily Podkolzin is going to be a part of this. Let's trade him to the Edmonton Oilers for a 4th-round pick. He was the first star last night. I don't know if you caught that against the Vegas Golden Knights. He had a pretty good game against them Golden Knights, and we'll talk about that as well later in anyone else. But he's in that territory. Aatu Raty is where he's going to need to be undeniably a part of this team, or the Canucks might do what they did with Podkolzin, where they ship him out and get a draft pick rather than losing him for nothing. So our poll question, let's bring it up, Jacob. The results of today's poll question: do you think Raty will play an AHL game next year? And of course, he's going to require waivers in order to be sent down. 84.7% of voters say no, he will not play an AHL game next year. 15.3% say yes, he will. I'd be shocked. I'd be so shocked if he's on this team come training camp and he hits waivers just to give up on a big part of the Bo Horvat trade. I don't think it's going to happen. Ultimately, I think Raty sticks. Like, I think Raty's a fine 4th-line center. You bring back Pia Suter. He's not even your 3C. He's playing wing and he's giving you center depth if you need it. And then ideally you go out and get a 2C as well. There'd be a bit of a logjam at center, but I don't think that's enough to make Raty not earn a spot on this team.
Yeah, and the waiver requirement, it incentivizes the Canucks to keep him on the roster over other guys, even if the battles are close in training camp. I've had these conversations. I wrote a story about a year and a half ago where I talked to several NHL players about their experience earlier in their careers getting sent down. What's that like mentally? What's that like lifestyle-wise? What are those conversations like with the team, with the GM? And a couple of them sort of referenced that GMs would be very honest sometimes in saying that, hey, you probably deserve to be on this team, but because of certain, contracts and guys requiring waivers, like it's just easier to send you down. And so that goes into it, right? Where, for example, Arshdeep Bains and Nils Hoglander next year, they're not going to get claimed off waivers. right? So whereas Ratu, because of his ability to play center, being a higher profile prospect coming up,
Still just 22.
Still just 22, there's a much higher likelihood of him getting claimed. And so if it's close between Ratu and any of these, like even Linus Karlsson, right? If Linus Karlsson has a marginally better training camp than Aatu Raty, Karlsson's probably going to be the one getting sent down because Karlsson's less likely to get claimed off waivers. So that gives Ratu an advantage on top of being a center. This team doesn't have a lot of centers, and even if he isn't in a position where he's going to be one of your 12 forwards for opening night, you could still stick him as your 13th forward. And eventually at some point he'd get in just through injuries and whatnot. So Ratu, yeah, I'm expecting him to make the team out of camp next season, and I'd be surprised if he plays AHL games at all next year.
I did include Linus Karlsson in the list. I'd probably rank him a little bit ahead of Baines in terms of who could get claimed.
Yeah,
like Karlsson's the clear number 2. I think, like, let's not forget, like, Linus Karlsson played playoff games last year. I know I crapped on him a lot at training camp, but he is an above point per game producer at the AHL level, 25 years old. I could see a team maybe throwing a claim in, but there's
still
also
really unlikely though.
Exactly. There's also so many names on waivers at the start of training camps, or during training camps, when a lot of those guys are going to get sent down. So he's the clear number 2, but Ratu is far ahead of him as the number 1 spot. Also on Nils Amon, I decided I'm going to start calling him Wheels Amon, since you're Nils Amon faster than
Wheels
you think.
Amon.
Wheels Amon.
I love that.
Yeah, because if you're Nils Amon faster than you think take from last week, that was pretty funny. And someone cracked the code that he actually is faster than we all thought.
I can't believe we debated how fast Nils Amon is.
There was still meaningful games going on, Harm. Not that there's not now. This game is a must-win tonight.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Rick Talkie yesterday described it as is like a Game 7.
Boom. Game 7, Canucks, Kraken.
In the mid-off.
It's like eight straight Game 7s for the Canucks now.
8 straight Game 7s. All you got to do is win them all. Canucks went with the same lineup tonight. So, yes, Wheels Amon will center that 4th line. Just wanted an excuse to say Wheels Amon again. Dakota Joshua, you brought him up as well. Rick Tocchet spoke about him after morning skate today. Talked about him just needing to get a step ahead on his reads and anticipation, and that he thought he was doing that a lot better on the road trip, especially the back half of that road trip. And obviously that goes without saying that he was playing with Aatu Raty on that line. And of course, Kiefer Sherwood there as well. It's going to be an interesting game tonight. It's going to be Elias Pettersson slotting in instead of Victor Mancini on that third pairing. We've talked about it a little bit. I'd like to see Mancini and Pettersson get into a game at the same time. I don't think they're there yet because there's still a, 9% chance of making the playoffs? What did I say? Okay, 6.7% chance of making the playoffs. You're not doing it yet, but I'd like to see it down the stretch. And it goes hand in hand with your play Jonathan Lekermacki in more minutes role or take.
Yeah, especially once you're mathematically eliminated, that's when you can really have both guys in the lineup at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, that's enough on the game. Let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by Greta Bar YVR, the home of our electric watch parties. Greta's a great spot for all games, home and away, conveniently located just minutes from the arena. Make Greta your pre, post, or main spot to chill next time you're downtown, and join us on April 10th for a 6 p.m. start, Vancouver versus Colorado. The event is in support of kids sport. You must be 19 plus, and you can get your tickets at nationgear.ca. It's a game day at Greta presented by Fountain Tire. Make sure you join us. They're always fun, no matter where the Canucks are in the standings. They're always fun. We have a lot of fun at these watch parties, so hope you can come out to join us. We got the arcade, we got the bar, we got the street food, and of course, we have our own section of Greta just kind of sectioned off for us, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Even if you don't want to watch the hockey, come get a smash burger, come hang out with Harmon and I. I'll play anyone in basketball. That's
Sounds like we're going to have some more giveaways this time around too. So, even if you don't want to watch the Canucks potentially lose their 8th must-win game in a row to the Colorado Avalanche, there'll be enough fun stuff going on to warrant coming out and joining us at Greta.
We really should advertise that as well. The fact that we always try to make them fun. Like, we understand that the Canucks aren't going to win every time we have a watch party, but ask people who come to the watch parties if they had fun. everyone, I hope, would say that they did have fun because they're always a lot of fun. And I mean, the last watch party you had is going to be tough to top because it was Canada versus USA in the gold medal game, and that was the Four Nations Championship game. That was so electric. That overtime win, just cheering for Connor McDavid was weird for everyone in that bar, I think. But there were these mouthy American kids sitting in the booth over there, and this was like, what is it, 2 months ago now? And they were like chanting USA after the States got out to a lead. And I was like, those kids are young. They were, they were 19 plus, but they were young looking. And I was like, these kids are going to get their asses beat if they don't figure it out here. And anyways, it was a great Canadian moment because when Canada came back, the whole bar started yelling at them and like playfully kind of chirping them. And there was like a line of people walking by and just flipping them the bird, and they took it well. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun over at Greta. So our next watch party is going to be a lot of fun too. April 10th, Vancouver, Colorado. Okay, let's get to this one. S. Little Boston. He makes a good point, and this is about P.S. Suter, right? You'd rather have too many flex centers who can play wing than the struggles they've had to identify centers. Yeah, absolutely. We talked about this yesterday when it came to signing P.S. Suter to an extension. Like, I don't want to make a sweeping claim. Like, yeah, you prioritize P.S. Suter over Brock Besser, but like, it's hard to say that this team could find something better than P.S. Suter on the open market. I struggle to find who that name is, but when they signed P.S. Suter, I also wasn't clamoring for them to go out and sign P.S. Suter. I do want to say this, Harm, because I know you agree with this take, so I don't need your take on the flex centers. I will say this. I thought about this yesterday. I've had the take, yeah, they're going to sign Forbert, they're going to sign Besser, they're going to sign Suter. Let's just focus on Besser and Suter. We did the show last week where we talked about what those guys' market values are. Like, there's a big upgrade needed at center. This team might run out of cap space with just Besser and Suter. Like, there's not a lot of money left over to sign guys beyond Besser and Suter.
Yeah, I mean, this is where OEL buyout hurts. It's also why for next season, they're going to be reliant to some extent on ELC guys, Tom Willander, Jonathan Lecker-Mackey, DPD, Victor Mancini, players on Aatu as well, just like cheap, young, cost-controlled guys. You need some of them to really take an important step and become sort of secondary contributors for you. That sort of can really help a team find another gear at a time when they're up against a cap. But you're right, and that's why, honestly, I'm not sure I want to see both Besser and Suter get re-signed. Like, to be totally honest with you.
I would say, okay, which of those would you sign at market value? And we talked about that last week. I know it was our poll question, but I think like if you can get Brock Besser on a bit of a hometown discount, even 7x7, that's cheaper than I think what we were thinking. And I don't love that contract, but let's be honest, that's what it's going to cost. That's what it's probably going to cost. So if you can get Besser at like a 7x7 and then Suter at, I don't know, 4 years, $4.5 million, I can live with that. Even 4 years at $5 million, you can live with it. You don't love it, but you can live with it. I think that's okay. But when you start to get to this 4x5, 5x5 for Suter, and then 8x8 for Besser, 7x8, 8.5 for Besser, too much in my mind. But if you can get one of them on a discount, and hopefully that's Besser on a discount, I think you're okay signing Suter at market value. Do you agree?
Yeah, I just think you got to be mindful of not rolling the same core back. Right? This team needs, especially up front, needs a new spark. Needs a legit difference maker, somebody that can dynamically drive play. Because like, let's be honest, DeBrusk and Besser are kind of similar at this point, where they can give you 25 to 30 goals. They're really skilled around the net. They can help 5-on-5 on the power play. They're defensively responsible, but they're passengers. They're complementary guys. They're not going to ever drive a line by themselves. And you need somebody in the top six who can make plays happen, who can create zone entries, who can be dynamic off the rush. You just got to make sure that you're budgeting enough space to be able to make that type of splash too.
Speaking of space, this is a question from John on Facebook. He said, how does Hedl and his health fit into the cap plan for next season? We touched on this yesterday, Harm, but let's repeat it really quickly. Like, you don't want Filip Hedl penciled in as your 2C by the end of the offseason. You want to have him penciled in as a 3C, and then you have some insurance in Teddy Bluger in Aatu Raty. But if Hedl's healthy, which the Canucks are presumably going to operate under the guise of, is that he's able to come back and at least give it a go to start the season, the impact is that they are not going to be able to accrue, you would assume, if he needs to hit LTIR. Again, that's $4.5 million that's going to be hitting LTIR. And this is why they traded the Tucker Pullman contract ahead of the season, was they thought they were going to be competitive. So they accrued a bunch of cap space all season long. It's why they did those call-ups and send-downs. Those were all not paper transaction, but those were all daily transactions so that they could accrue cap space each day and maximize what they were able to accrue so that they'd have space at the deadline. Now, obviously, they were not buyers at the deadline, and for good reason. So that kind of went to waste, but next season, they're not going to be able to accrue cap space, you would think, if Filip Hedl has to hit LTIR.
It's just one of those things you can't really plan for right now. You have to operate and assume as if Hedl's going to be on your roster, in your lineup, and healthy, because doesn't sound like this at least as of now, that this concussion is career ending. And you just can't end up in a scenario where you spend as if Hedl's going to be on LTIR the whole season.
Yeah.
And then at some point next season, after several months, let's say he's ready to play again and you're millions over the cap, like, what are you going to do then? Like you just can't operate that way. You almost have to just assume that he's going to be rejoining your roster at some point in the regular season next year. And so you can't spend that nearly 4.5 in the summer.
Over Yonder brought this up as well in the YouTube live chat, and it was brought up in the Canucks Army chat, so I ask you this. The plan of re-sign Suter, re-sign Besser, and trade Elias Pettersson, because then you've got a lot of cap space to work with. You're getting assets back. Harmon, what do you say?
No.
Jinzo in the chat said, we aren't making the playoffs. Let's move on. What is it? 7.6% chance?
6 point something. Dude, how do you not remember this number?
We're like 38 minutes into this show, and we spent 2 minutes previewing tonight's must-win game.
Yeah,
and the other 36 minutes have been talking about contracts and the cap and who has stuff to prove. I think we've moved on.
We're not moving on. They are making the playoffs potentially. Six. What is it? 8.7? 6.7. 6.7%.
You're just doing that to annoy me.
I am doing it to annoy you. I have been for a while, but 6.7% chance. It ain't over till it's over. I want to talk about this. Jacob, turn on your mic. The Montreal Canadiens. I picked them in our Bet365 bet of the day yesterday. They tie it up late from a goal from Nick Suzuki, and then Nick Suzuki goes and wins the game in overtime as well. What a win by our Habs, Jacob.
Your Habs. Interesting.
Our Habs.
Yes. You know what? Like, Suzuki is clutch, man. Like, when you watch Nick Suzuki, and, you know, I know Elias Pettersson's name just got brought up, but it's like, when you talk about that two-way, like, really good defensive center, but also like skilled offensive guy, like, Nick Suzuki is that. You know, I think the way that a lot of people talk about Barkov, I'm not saying Suzuki's ever going to win Selkies like Barkov, but like, he's almost at that level. And, you know, like, I'm excited to see him in the playoffs again. I went back and looked on the Habs Cup run in 2021. Their number 1 and 3 scorers on that run were Suzuki and Caulfield, making their first playoff appearances. So, you know, this team's not going to go into the playoffs if they make it with no experience. Like, they've had guys that were there, and it's hard not to look at a guy like Lane Hutson and say, what could he do in the playoffs? Now, he's smaller. We know what it's like for smaller guys in the playoffs, but hey, we've also seen Quinn Hughes in the playoffs. So I don't know. I'm excited. It's interesting. If you came into this year saying that the Habs would be like in a playoff spot with 8 games to go and the Canucks would be at 6.7%, I would say you've got that backwards. So
Remember in that 2021
I was just about to bring it
season,
up.
when the Leafs were up, what was it, 3-1 in the series, and they blew it to the Habs.
And then the Habs went on to the final. Like,
Carey Price was so good in that Toronto series, though. Like,
I was
once
just about to
they
ask how
fell
that
down
team played.
3-1, when they fell down 3-1, Price, I think, gave up 3 or 4 goals the rest of the series. It was insane. He emptied the tank. Shea Weber emptied the tank, and that's how they did it.
I think that has to be the Leafs scorers' most embarrassing playoff moment. That one specifically. They've had a lot of bad ones.
Yeah, there's so many to choose from.
There's a lot, but that Habs team wasn't expected to win that series at all.
Yeah, and they to their credit, like, they went deep. They went really deep, way deeper than anyone thought they would. I feel like we're gonna be having that exact conversation about Linus Ullmark and, I don't know, Jake Sanderson in like a week or two. Like, oh, Jake Sanderson just came alive. There was no way that the Sens were going away. Anyways,
and one last thing on Nick Suzuki, because I just looked this up. Take a guess at how many penalty minutes Nick Suzuki has this season. And he gets matched up like against other teams' top lines frequently. How many PIMs does he have?
I'm going to guess 8.
I
got to go 6 or 7.
Yeah, he's got 6 penalty minutes this season.
I couldn't have the same guess as Harmon. I had Price's right him.
Yeah.
Although I don't know why I said 7.
Yeah, he's at a fighting major and
one minor.
No, but yeah, 6 penalty minutes, and he's got 79 points in 74 games. I think for those who, Lady Bing maybe, but for those who haven't gotten a good chance to watch Nick Suzuki, like, he's worth it. He absolutely is worth it.
Where do I find Jack Adams betting odds? Oh, never mind. Spencer Carberry's going to win it. Okay,
yeah.
Moving on. Yeah, I
found St. Louis.
He's minus 5,000, and second is Dean Evison at plus 1,300.
St. Louis might be named a finalist, but I think we all know who's getting the award this year.
All right. Okay. There was another thing that I wanted to bring up. Oh yeah, Jacob, fantasy baseball standings. Pull it up. I was chirped yesterday for no reason. He's not even on this show anymore. Thank God I don't have to hear from him every day about stuff like this anymore, but he chirped through you, Harmon, so I have to respond. My boys came in clutch last night. Just a day after Chris Faber, with a 2-point lead in the standings, came out bragging about, oh yeah, my team's doing this. My team, I'm first place. Quads is a fraud. He's in second place. Just a day after that, my team skyrockets to a 12-point lead on Chris's team for first in the standings. We're just absolutely demolishing them, demolishing the competition right now. So I just wanted to bring it up. I don't like to bring up fantasy baseball this early in the season. It means nothing. It's the first couple of weeks, but when my team gets questioned, we respond. We got a couple homers from Kyle Tucker last night. Eugenio Suarez can't do anything but hit bomb right now. So my boys responded in a big way. And that's the thing. They rally around their coach, manager in baseball. My integrity gets questioned, and my boys, I gave a rallying speech before. We believe in this clubhouse. We believe.
Yeah, and how's your other clubhouse doing?
You know what? Good start from Jose Barrios last night. We actually
sorry, no. I didn't ask just generally how.
Yeah, we climbed the standings. We climbed. We're not last anymore.
Wow.
And Chris Paul hits a massive 3 to cut the lead to 30. I haven't looked. Jacob, where am I in that league? Are you looking at it? Jacob's also in both of these leagues.
Yes, I am.
I'm 14th. We moved up from 15th to 14th.
Good job.
We're coming. And that's, of course, the Moj League. Oh, look at this. Oh, this is too good. Moj is 15th. I hope he's watching this show. Moj is the 15th team. He was chirping yesterday. Oh, I'm literally going to text him right now because he texted me about it yesterday. I'm just going to text him it with no. Actually, Jacob, book Moj right now. Just call him. Just get him on the phone. Let's book him. Yeah, just bring him on. Doesn't know why he's coming on the show. That's so funny.
I'm not calling Moj.
I texted it to him. We'll see if he replies. I texted it to him. Anyways, Harmon, anything else you wanted to get in?
No.
Okay, I had 2 things. Sorry. I don't know why I didn't look at my notes. I got excited about baseball. Ovechkin scores last night. He's now just 3 goals away from tying the record, 4 away from breaking it. We keep track of that. We're keeping track of the OV tracker, and we'll see when he breaks this. Don't think it's going to be the last game of the season, but we'll see when it takes place, when it happens, but it looks like it's going to happen. Of course, knock on wood, but we might see history pretty soon here. The Edmonton Oilers beat the Vegas Golden Knights ending the dream that the Canucks might catch them for third in the Pacific. I know a lot of us were believing it. You too, Harm. But but it doesn't look like it's gonna happen. And I said last night as well. Vasily Podkolzin, first star in that game. Really good game for Vasily Podkolzin. Okay, I had nothing else. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day. Let's do it. Okay, I was trying to see if I could take Podkolzin for Conn Smythe, but it's not available. I can do a write-in to them. No, let's go here. Let's do a hockey bet. Let's do a hockey bet tonight. Okay, I don't know why this is, but the Washington Capitals are because they played last night. I'm still taking it. The Washington Capitals are heavy underdogs visiting the Carolina Hurricanes, but the Capitals are the best team in the league for a reason, and I am taking the Washington Capitals money line at plus 185 odds. Capitals to beat the Hurricanes in any fashion tonight. Taking it. Capitals money line plus 185 over on Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every face-off, hat-trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment is never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app and use the code NATION to get in on the game. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. We got a super chat here, and I love it. This is from Joshua Phillip. Harmon, would you like to read it? It's a $10 donation to the BC Mental Health Foundation. Joshua, thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, this is pretty awesome. Quads ADHD tangents have kept the season interesting. Cheers.
I'm glad someone appreciates them because I often feel bad about it. I do because I really, really do struggle to focus sometimes on this show, especially. So I appreciate it. I appreciate that someone out there enjoys it and likes when I just dart off. That's the thing. I think it's something you've had to get used to, though, hey? That you kind of need to always be on your toes because you never really know what direction I'm going to go.
Yeah. Especially on this show. It's not like we talk beforehand about what we're going to discuss on the show. We just kind of freestyle it.
Which is great because when we started, like, we were planning a lot. We were like, hey, we're going to talk about this. And I was trying to, like, ease you into it. But, like, the way you and I do the show now, like, this is how
It's better.
It's way better. It's because you
more
are
organic,
comfortable talking. That's why it's like this. Like, this is how Faber and I used to do the show. This is how it was. But now,
and if we prep, I'll know your like crazy arguments and hot takes before. Whereas now you'll just blurt them on air, and I'll be shell shocked.
Yeah,
live. So which is great.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great system. It's a great thing we got going here. Okay. And Rajcraft, yes, he said, so Faber wasn't kidding that you don't prep. I do like the prep now, but I don't tell Harmon what's on the sheet. Like I know what direction the show's going to go for the most part, but Harmon doesn't like that. And that's not because Harmon's not doing prep. It's just that I prep the YouTube thing with Jacob, or I lay it out and then Jacob does all the actual work. But yeah, I didn't prep before. That was what I do now was everything Faber had to do before, but also Faber prepped way too much, even when we did our shows of no prep. But anyways, yeah, we'll close it out there. Anything else either of you want to say?
Nope.
All right. Jacob, can I get a comment on your fantasy baseball team?
Middle of the pack in the Moj League, tied for last in your league, but you know, Gunnar Henderson's my second best player and he's injured right now. So I'll take that as the excuse for the week.
Yeah.
It's also like 1 week into the season and half my team is going 0 for 4 every night. So
I believe in Jacobs. You know, it's still really early in the season. I believe in his team. I believe in his leadership, his baseball knowledge and expertise. You can't judge him this early in the season.
That's right. That's right. And we shouldn't ever bring up the standings again. So I'm just saying, next time Moj chirps, I just can't believe that happened. That Moj chirped me yesterday, Faber chirped me yesterday, both get brought up on the show, and less than 24 hours later, both of those guys are below me. That's just too perfect. Too perfect.
I mean, Moj did mention to me that he's 14th.
Oh, he did?
Yesterday,
okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't brought up to me. I didn't realize it till today. But anyways, I'm just glad I passed Moj. That's great. Okay, we'll close it out there. For my co-host Armin Dial and our technical producer Jacob Bizarre, my name is Dave Woodrelli. Thanks so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.